Hi there, I'm Charlotte, and I'm a visitor assistant here at the McManus. This month marks the 200th birthday of the poet William McGonagall. This is a man whose reputation precedes him, though perhaps not in the way he could have envisioned for himself. In honour of this anniversary, what better time to celebrate the life and legacy of the man who is often hailed as the world's worst poet. Although born in Edinburgh, McGonagall spent much of his life in Dundee. Originally following in the footsteps of his father as a handloom weaver, he was struck by a sudden desire later in life, and he began his notorious career as a writer. Much of this career was indulgently self-publicised. He fabricated an image of himself as poet and tragedian. While he claimed that Dame Fortune had bestowed the gifts of poetry upon him, this supposed genius was not well received by audiences. He lacked expansive vocabulary, and his rhymes were monotone and tedious. During public readings of his work, he would be routinely pelted with eggs, rotten fruit, on one occasion a bag of treacle, and presumably a slew of criticisms. In fact, these disturbances caused so much commotion that McGonagall was banned from any further public performances of his work. This did little to deter McGonagall, who seemed impervious to these criticisms, and went on to write over 200 poems. This portrait of McGonagall by William Bradley Lamond, here in our Making of Modern Dundee gallery, depicts the poet as a rather sullen character and suggests he was a man who took himself very seriously. The National Galleries notes that while he wrote about various subjects, there was an underlying theme of man's struggle against nature and the transience of life. This is perhaps best exemplified in his most famous work, the Tay Bridge disaster. McGonagall had previously waxed lyrical about the beautiful railway bridge of the Silvery Tay, lauding the work of architects and engineers. He had beseeched God to protect all passengers, praying that no accident would befall them while crossing. Yet, as we know, these pleas could do nothing to prevent the tragic events of the 28th of December, 1879, when a portion of the bridge would collapse into the Firth of Tay, claiming the lives of all 75 passengers on board the train passing at the time. Now, this tragedy presented McGonagall with a perfect opportunity to elogise the bridge through verse. This was an event which he repeatedly presses will be remembered for a very long time. This work has often been considered the worst poem of all time, and has cemented him in history as an infamously poor writer. Hugh McDermott famously said, McGonagall was not a bad poet, still less a good bad poet. He was not a poet at all. Much of McGonagall's prose relates to displays which can be found around the galleries, and indeed the museum itself. In its 1878 work, Bonnie Dundee, McGonagall mentions the beautiful Albert Institute, the original name for this building, and penned a tribute to the unveiling of the Robert Burns statue, which can be found outside the galleries in Albert Square. McGonagall wrote about the Tay monster whale, the skeleton of which hangs from the roof in this gallery. He also composed an address to the Reverend George Gilfillan, the great literary patron, whose likeness is also captured by Lamond and is displayed in this same room. McGonagall died in 1902, not with the reverence and success he may have wished for, but in poverty. He was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave in Edinburgh. Yet time has been kind to McGonagall, and this final resting place was recognised with a memorial plaque in 1999. There is something to be said for the sheer fortitude McGonagall displayed throughout his life. His body of work is still in print today, and he is beloved by many Dundonians. This was not a man who could be silenced by his critics, and he has left an enduring legacy which ensures he will be remembered for a very long time.